Now, with the offseason wrapping up, I felt like it would be a great time to go over my full 30-team NBA power ranking. Obviously, this is just a prediction. I have no idea how good the teams are going to be next year, and they're probably all going to be wrong come the end of next year. But why not? Predictions are a part of sports, so let's do it. So let's start with number 30. The worst team in the league, I think, is definitely the Detroit Pistons. This team was terrible last year, and they've somehow gotten worse, paying a bunch of terrible players. They let their best player, Christian Wood, walk. It's a mess out there. The Detroit Pistons have no idea what they're doing, so yeah, definitely number 30. Number 29, the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks aren't as dumb as the Pistons. They have not had a terrible offseason, but there's just still not a whole lot of talent on this roster. They've got some young players like RJ, they drafted Obi, Mitchell Robinson, but then again, that roster is not very good, and the 29th best team in the league, I think, and probably will be actually the second worst team in the East, because you still got the Pistons, but Knicks stay at the bottom of this power rankings for like the 5th year in a row. At 28, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers. I do really like the Isaac Okoro pick for the Cleveland Cavs, but that doesn't put them really above any other teams or move them up the list at all. He'll help them. They're still young with Sexton and Garland. They still got good players like Love, but once again, not a very good roster. They were bad last year. I expect them to be bad this year. And I have number 28. From the 6th seed to number 27, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I think the Thunder had a very successful offseason because their whole goal was to get worse, and they've definitely done that. They've acquired picks, they've acquired young players, and their team is basically non-existent. They have very few players. Their players aren't very good except for Shea, so I think it was a successful offseason, but they are bad. So I got them at number 27. Number 26 is the Chicago Bulls. I was hoping the Bulls would make a move to get better because I do want to see the Bulls get back to being good, but they've really done absolutely nothing this offseason to improve their team. Now, they did get a new coach, so maybe that's all the difference they really needed, but when you look at other bottom of the Eastern Conference teams, they've improved and the Bulls haven't, so I can't see them being any higher than number 26. Number 25, I have the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets have been very active this offseason, acquiring Gordon Hayward. They drafted LaMelo Ball, and I think they're going to be better than they were last year, but still not amazing. We don't know how good LaMelo is going to be. Hayward is a good player, but he's not game-changing. He's not going to bring them to the playoffs, I think. I mean, maybe if LaMelo's good and Devontae takes another jump, they could make the playoffs, but I really don't see it, so I think they'll be okay. They'll be better than a lot of Eastern Conference teams, but I still have them at number 25. At 24, the Washington Wizards. Now, the Wizards are one of the weirdest teams on this list because we have really no idea how this team's going to look come next season. We know Wall wants out, but then again, maybe he doesn't. There's been conflicting reports. Beal, there's still a question mark over Beal. They drafted Denny. I don't know how good he's going to be. So this team could be good. They could be terrible. I have him at number 24 just because Wall coming off his injuries, I don't expect to be that good. Denny could be good, but I don't know if I like the fit of him in Washington. But having a guy like Bradley Beal on your team alone makes you better than a lot of bottom Eastern Conference teams because they have a legit star, which a lot of teams don't. So, Wizards, 24. The Minnesota Timberwolves are number 23 for me. The Anthony Edwards pick at number 1 I do like for them. Now, Anthony Edwards has said some questionable things about the game of basketball and stuff that is a little concerning, and you hope he doesn't become like Andrew Wiggins for them, but when you have a guy like Towns, a guy like D'Angelo Russell, you'll be able to get some wins, and they'll be better than teams below them, but I don't see the Timberwolves making any moves that put them above a ton of Western Conference teams. I still think they'll be near the bottom of the Western Conference, and I have them number 23 overall. The Sacramento Kings might be one of the more disappointing teams for me because they're coming in at 22. Man, the Sacramento Kings like 2 years ago were so close to making the playoffs. They were in this fast-paced offense behind Frank Vogel with De'Aaron Fox leading the break, and then they fired their coach, hired Luke Walton, they let Bogdan walk, now they want to trade Buddy Hield, and this team went from being on the cusp of making the playoffs to just being another pretty bad team. I still think they're better than teams like the Timberwolves in their conference, but that's really it. So, yeah, for the Kings, 22. The San Antonio Spurs just get older, so they're going to be number 21. DeMar continues to age. LA continues to age. I doubt both of them are on the roster by the end of next season, but assuming they are, this team's not going to be very good. They'll be decent. They'll get some wins. They won't be bottom of the West, but they're not going to make any noise in the playoff race. So, number 21 for the Spurs. For 20, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I think the Memphis Grizzlies are a good team, but there are so many teams in the Western Conference that I think have improved more than the Grizzlies, and that will just be better than the Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies were the 9th seed last year. They just missed out on the playoffs, but they are still a good team. They are still very young. I don't think the Grizzlies are in any trouble or anything. They're just not old enough yet, so Grizzlies at 20, but this team is good. At number 19, it's the Orlando Magic. The Magic continue to be just the most middle-of-the-road team really in the league. Every year, they're 7-8 seed and lose in the first round in 5, and I really don't see a difference this year. They have not gotten better. They really haven't gotten worse. They drafted Cole Anthony, who's nice, but they didn't make a trade with Aaron Gordon or anything like that. They still have Vucevic on the roster, and this team will just continue to be very average. So that's why I have them as number 19. I know the Pelicans lost Drew Holiday, but I think they'll be decent next year, and I have them as 18. They just locked up Brandon Ingram to a max, and I expect him and Zion to just both take jumps next year. When you have two young emerging superstars like Ingram and Zion, you can't expect this team to be bad even if they lost that veteran leader and a guy who could be their best player at times. They still have a guy like Lonzo, who's a big question mark. Can he finally develop into a really good point guard? We don't know. The Pelicans, I don't expect to be a playoff team, but they could. They really could, because there's so many question marks and moving parts around that team. I do expect them to be better than like the Magic, who have made no moves to get better. I expect them to be better than the Grizzlies, but I don't think they're there just yet, so 18. One of the more active teams in the offseason, the Atlanta Hawks at 17. The Hawks went from one of the worst teams last year to, I think, a playoff team in the East. Trae Young is just going to get older. They've acquired Bogdan, who was a steal for them. They signed Gallinari. I don't know how they run the starting lineup, but at the end of the day, talent is talent, and you'll figure it out. Because they do have 3 big men in Gallinari, Collins, Capella, so they're going to have to choose how they start that. Or they could try to start all 3, which I don't like. But either way, I think the Hawks made a lot of moves to get better, so they're number 17. You know, they were a playoff team last year, and I expect them to be a playoff team again this year, but I don't see them being very good. It's the Indiana Pacers. Now, the Indiana Pacers will, like I said, be decent this year, but a lot of teams have gotten better. They have not. They have made 0 moves. We thought they might acquire Hayward, they might trade Oladipo, they would have to choose between Turner and Sabonis, and they've done none of that. And if Oladipo is still not back to his old self and TJ Warren goes back to being normal TJ Warren, I don't expect the Pacers to be all that amazing. So I only have them 1 spot higher than the Hawks. I have them 16. This one hurts because this team was supposed to be so good, but then the Clay injury, and now I can't put them any higher than 15. Now, you do get Curry back. You did trade for Oubre. You still have Wiggins. They will be okay, especially after drafting Wiseman. But before the Thompson injury, I would have had this team way higher, like well in the top 10. But the problem is, outside of Steph Curry, I don't know how much I value this team. Draymond is not very good anymore. Wiggins is always just Andrew Wiggins. Oubre is decent. We don't know how good Wiseman's going to be. But at the end of the day, it almost feels like it's going to be like last year where Steph Curry's in the game. You just send the entire defense at Steph and let everyone else kind of do their thing. And you can get a lot of wins doing that, but you're not going to get consistent wins when Steph Curry's your only player taking a bunch of shots. So, number 15 for the Warriors. Sucks for them. Because a team I do have above them, who I am very high on, is the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Suns went from not making the playoffs to being number 14 on my list. Reason being is this team was amazing in the bubble last year. They went 8-0, and they have acquired Chris Paul, Jay Crowder. They drafted Jalen Smith. I think this team is a lot better and is almost a playoff lock in the West, in my opinion. Chris Paul is the perfect fit for the Phoenix Suns. It allows Booker to play off the ball. CP can still play off the ball. He's going to feed Ayton so many easy buckets. I mean, this team can roll out a starting lineup of Chris Paul, Booker, probably Mikal Bridges, and then you could decide who to start. Cam Johnson, Crowder, with Ayton running the middle. I think that team's amazing, and I have him at number 14. Another team I think went really good in the offseason and got a lot better is the Portland Trailblazers. They have finally built, I think, a decent team around Dame and CJ, acquiring Robert Covington. Robert Covington gives them so much of what they've been missing, that defense and that three-point shooting next to Dame and CJ. And Robert Covington, being one of the more versatile players in the league, can run really 3 through 5. I mean, he did it in Houston, so he could probably do it in Portland's. They got Enes Kanter back, who was really successful in that playoff run for them, so now they don't have to worry about bringing a Whiteside back. I think Portland got a lot better, and I have him at 13. Number 12 is the Dallas Mavericks. Now the Mavericks, for them, it's just all about experience. Luka, coming into his third season, coming off a near MVP season in his second year, which is just crazy. Kristaps Porzingis, still young, he's only going to get older, and they've made some moves that I do like the Josh Richardson trade. That's going to add some much-needed defense for them. So not only do you improve your team, you get older, and that's really the big key for the Mavericks, so they're 11. One of the more confusing teams in the league last year, the 76ers, actually has made some really good moves this offseason, so they're number 11. They acquired Dwight Howard, who's going to add some needed big help off the bench for them. They've acquired shooting, finally. They got Seth Curry for them, who's going to be perfect alongside Ben Simmons. They got off the Horford contract. They got Danny Green. This team seems like a more coherent, put-together basketball team instead of just a bunch of random talent thrown together. So they can finally, I think, be a good team this year instead of being just so disappointing last year. I don't have them being top of the top in the East, but they will definitely put up more of a fight this year than they ever did last year. At number 10, I know, for now, it is the Houston Rockets. However, this can drastically change. I'm not even going to talk about all the rumors of trading Harden and Westbrook because that could happen any day, it feels like. We know the chemistry isn't there. But when you look at this team on paper right now, acquiring Christian Wood, acquiring DeMarcus Cousins, this team is better. And this team is still very good. Christian Wood is the perfect fit for them. He's that good small ball center for them. So that's more of a body than PJ Tucker. He can still stretch the floor for them. He's perfect. Same thing with DeMarcus Cousins. And you still have two stars in James Harden and Westbrook. Whether they like each other or not, whether they're going to be on the team, as long as you have them, you will be pretty good. So for now, they are number 10. But I could probably expect this to change come the end of next year. In the top 10 now, at number 9 is the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz extended Donovan Mitchell, which is huge for them. They acquired Derek Favors, who adds a much-needed backup center over Tony Bradley for them. They brought back Jordan Clarkson. This team didn't do a whole lot to get better, but they did make some subtle moves that I think do improve this team, on top of just getting more experience with Mitchell getting older, and I think this team will be very good next year. Donovan Mitchell showed out in the bubble last year, and I think he can do the same, maybe not for the entire regular season, but have a season where he is averaging up to 27 points a game, especially with not a whole lot of other scorers around him. Utah Jazz, 9. At number 8, the Toronto Raptors. They are so fortunate to be able to re-sign Fred VanVleet. That is huge for them. That was a big surprise. I didn't think they were going to bring back Fred, and they brought him back on a pretty good contract. Now, they did lose their bigs in Ibaka and Gasol, but they do bring in Aaron Baines, who can fulfill that need to an extent, and the Raptors always just find a way to be good. Every year, I feel like, especially after they lost Kawhi, we thought they were going to be bad, and they ended up being really just as good. I mean, they didn't win a championship, but in the regular season, they won just as many games. So, the Raptors always find a way. Pascal just gets better every year. Kyle Lowry doesn't look like he's slowing down, so I expect the Raptors to once again be good at number 8. At number 7 is the biggest wildcard team in the entire league. It's the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets could end up being number 1, especially if they make a trade. But even if they don't make a trade for another star, KD Kyrie is a deadly duo. However, they are number 7 just because we don't know about KD coming off his injury. We don't know about the chemistry between them two because Kyrie always butts head with superstars, it feels like. We don't know about the pieces around KD and Kyrie, how they're going to fit. This team could be number 1. But with the injury concerns, with the chemistry, with the pieces around them, I'm going to put them as 7 for now with the chance to drastically go up. Number 6, just missing out on the top 5, is my favorite team, the Celtics. The Celtics, I've talked about their offseason. I don't think it was terrible, but they did lose Hayward, which hurts them. Now, the Celtics will still be very good. I have them at number 6. But I don't know if I can put them top of the Eastern Conference with the moves they've made this offseason. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown continue to get older. Tatum got signed to a max, so they probably will, just by experience, be better. But I don't have him top of the East. I have him at 6. Entering the top 5 is the reigning Eastern Conference champions, the Miami Heat. Now, when I say they're number 5, I don't necessarily mean that they'll be like the 5th best team in the regular season. You could see the Heat be the 6th seed in the East. That's what they kind of did this year, and then turn it up in the playoffs. The Miami Heat just seemed like they always found ways to win in these gritty type of games, and that's what happens in the Miami Heat culture when you have Jimmy Butler as your star. They maxed Bam. Some of their best players last year, like Tyler Hero, were rookies, and they're only going to get more experienced and older, so the Miami Heat could really terrorize the East for a decade, and I don't expect them to slow down next season. Number 4 is the 3-1 comeback kings, the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets impressed everyone, I think, in the playoffs last year. I didn't expect them to be as good as they were in the playoffs, and boy did they show out, upsetting the Clippers. The Denver Nuggets didn't really make moves to get better. They actually lost some depth. They lost Grant, but Jokic and Murray as your top 2, that's kind of filthy, especially with how they play together. The Nuggets will be very good next season. Number 3, I'm doing it. I'm taking the bait again. I'm taking the Clippers. The Clippers disappointed everyone last year, and you know, I could be taking the bait again and putting them at number 3 for a team that's going to disappoint. A team that lost Montrez. That team that lost their coach. But I am banking on the fact that the chemistry is improved next season, that the egos can get shut down, and this team can actually focus on winning games. I hope that playoff P actually makes an appearance instead of way off P for the Clippers. I expect Paul George to bounce back. This team should be good. They should be really favorites to win the championship when you look at this roster. The fact that they're even at number 3, like, you look at this team, they probably should be, you could argue they should be number 1. But the Clippers, everything surrounding them is just so, like, inconsistent with their playing and with their personalities that I'm going to put them at 3. And even that might be too high, but I'm taking the bait. And I could be taking the bait again at number 2, because another team that disappointed in the playoffs, the Milwaukee Bucks. However, unlike the Clippers, the Bucks have made moves to get better, and that's why they are number 2. Jrue Holiday adds a different aspect to this team that they really haven't had, because before, they had Eric Bledsoe starting, and Eric Bledsoe would always just find ways to make this team worse in the playoffs. He would just shoot them out of games. He really hurt them more than he helped them in the playoffs. And Jrue Holiday, I can assure you, will not be that guy. They've acquired guys off the bench like DJ Augustine, Bryn Forbes, Bobby Portis. That adds some depth for them. Now, once again, I could be taking the bait. Giannis could, once again, not look very good in the playoffs and get shut down by a team that just builds a wall. And Budenholzer could still only play his starters 30 minutes a game. Probably that will happen, but the talent on this roster, this team should be number 2. And I expect them to be number 2. And at number 1, no debate in my opinion, the Lakers. When you're the defending champions and you get significantly better, it's over. I mean, this Lakers team is so good. I've talked about them before, so I don't have much more to say, but the Lakers are the team to beat, and I don't know if the team will beat them. They seem like they're just going to sit on top of the NBA and just dominate this year, but you never know. But Lakers right now are by far number 1. So, am I overrating the Lakers? Am I overrating the Clippers, Bucks? Am I underrating the team? I don't really know, but these are my 30 NBA power rankings, so yeah. We out.